4 months in, very happy to be here. A lot of challenges already faced, the immigration and things that are happening suddenly. We have so much in Ohio, so I'm learning a lot, and I just look forward to all that we do together. There's a lot of work to be done within the organization. You have a team back here, and it's fantastic. I have Craig Smith here, Commander Baker section, Commander Mike Chancellor, DTAC downtown, Assistant Chief Jeff Greenwald, one of my sidekicks there, and then Lieutenant Fausto Rodriguez, who's in charge of community relations. So it's a fantastic group that I have. I'm surrounded by a lot of talented people, so I appreciate that. Again, a lot of work to do here in Austin, but I feel up to the challenge, and I look forward to working with all of you in those challenges. So. I don't know if you want me to take some questions or.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just kind of chat about this. I'm gonna skip ahead. I just want to be mindful of Chief Davis's time and also any of the other officers who might be here tonight. But one of the big questions that we got had to do with the 6th Street pilot, opening up 6th Street. Some people love it, some people hate it, but there's a lot of questions. We talked about it this past mobility committee meeting, and one thing that our office is hoping to look at, and whether it's going to be us bringing forward an IFC or hopefully getting some sort of report back, is just to look at the data, right? We want to do anything we can and see what we can to make sure that the city is a safer city, but we also want to look at the data and to see, is this working? So I just, like I said, that was probably the number one question we got, was on 6th Street pilot. So I don't know if it's you or one of the other officers.
Yeah. I think when I first came to Austin and looking at the data of downtown and what was occurring there, it's, it was a cool vibe. I mean, you go downtown and everything was kind of blocked off until a certain time. But it was really like, for me, looking at the data of how many officers, when you look at officers injured, you look at the officers who use force, and when you lay that on, and where crime's occurring, and you map those on top of each other, and it's all right in that area, in that 6th Street area. So it was really, to me, about changing a culture of, so we close off this street, and the crime and the events that were taking place. You have juveniles that were coming into that space. There's a couple of bars there that are 18 and over. Juveniles coming in and bringing liquor to drink inside that area, and then going into the bars. Fights, shots fired. We had officer-involved shooting right outside one of the bars. So it was a culture that was facilitated by, I think, us closing that street down. And so it allowed for a lot of the bar owners and the people that manage those spaces to not have that responsibility of managing a space, to not know how to cue a line, not know how to, it wasn't our responsibility it's their responsibility, the people that are inside those bars and their behaviors. And so when we facilitated this opening, that's all we were. It was, hey, we need you over here. And so we were acting, to me, as bouncers for these bars instead of them having the responsibility to control their crowds and to control the people that go in. Now the pilot, as it sets now, we've blocked off this space and we're allowing traffic in. We've changed the lights to slow the traffic down. But will this stay? I don't know that this will be the final recommendation, but the goal was to break up this culture of a party atmosphere. I mean, we have a guy running around, you can go on YouTube, and I think it's under 6th Street Fights, is that what it's under, something like that? So, someone's doing that, and so it's this, you can't have successful businesses if there's people, that we have a lot of vacant buildings there that they want to bring restaurants in and kind of change what's occurring there. You can't have that with that occurring, and again, for my purposes, the amount of resources and time that APD has spent in these locations is just unacceptable, so something has to change. Now there's physical structures of having the fencing up and so forth. Again, it may look very different, it may change. If the city wants to change it into a pedestrian-friendly entertainment zone and close it down. But I think the thing is, the burden of closing this down every weekend rested solely on APD's shoulders. And so I think with the city's movement of, look, things have to change, and their investment in looking at the infrastructure and kind of changing the environment there, that's what I'm excited for. So will it look like this all the time? I don't know. I mean, that's what this pilot's about, is kind of looking at the way we're doing things and how we can do things better. And so that's what I'm looking at, keeping officers safe and keeping the people safe down there. Currently, if you've been down there the last few weekends, we've got it, the cars are slowing down. We have officers at the intersections, and they're bringing people across, helping people across, because it is amazing how people will forget how to cross the street when it's been open all that time, and just try to remind them that cars will come and, do not walk in front of a car. So that's what we're dealing with, but it also gave us an opportunity to kind of look at a couple of bars and where we're having these pinch point areas where crowds are gathering. And so when you talk about even, I don't know if you guys have been down there, but we took a little bit of where the parking was carved in, we took those lanes and put some barricaded those up a little bit with some rubber curbs. I think they're about 18 inches tall, and some fencing there along the way. So expanding the sidewalk, so to speak, if you can imagine that. And so when we look at what the city needs to do as far as the infrastructure, is it to bring that all the way out, put planters, I like the heavy planters put out that way to kind of stop people and give a little bit of opening for people to get out. So again, this is new, it has to be flexible, we have to be able to close down if the crowds do get too dense. We have to be flexible with the plan and say, look, we're gonna close this down to traffic and get people out of the area. So again, it's not, it's a pilot. And so again, I'm gonna look at the best ways to do things, break up this crowd, keep my officers safe, get the uses of force down, keep them safe and healthy, and just break up this culture that is permeated in that area from just being too chaotic. That's really what it's about. Thank you. Yep.
Yeah, the only thing that I'll add, and correct me if I say anything wrong, but it's currently a pilot. It's gonna, during South by Southwest, the pilot will kind of
it will
pause,
close down in South by Southwest.
and then it will restart after South by. What my hope as a council member, like I said, we talked about this as a mobility committee, is that during that time that it's closed again, is to get some sort of data back and see,
Right.
what were the wins, and where did it maybe not work as well as it should have.
Yeah. Can I add something too?
Sure.
So
I think it was last weekend we were down, and there were actual representatives from South by Southwest that were there, and they wanted to see the way the plant was operating and how we did this, because they're interested in bringing some of the events back to 6th Street, back to that area. I think they had previously stopped bringing the events there, so they wanted to see how we were operating and if it was possible to bring events back. So I think that's a good sign of things to come forward.
And one thing that I heard from TPW is that I think there was, at one point, there were so many folks out that they closed the street back down. So I assume there's a certain cap that you guys might hit, that if there's
yeah,
X amount of people.
it's these 3 or 4 bars again that we're noticing that people congregate in front of. So it's about changing the dynamic in those 3 or 4 bars. We purchased some stanchions, and so we're going to meet this week with those 4 bar owners and teach them how to cue people into those stanchions, how to use those lines. And it really is, it's some education on their part about putting someone out there. It's not just about standing at the door, it's actually being responsible for your line. Last week we were out, and I'm walking down this way, and here's 2 kids with Mick Alters, and they're just drinking them out in the open, and they're 20 years old. And so this is, he said, we've always done that. We've always, and that's the atmosphere there. And you have bars that are busing kids down from the colleges, and they're getting drunk and drinking while they're on these buses. They're not IDing them before they get on a bus, and that's kind of what we've been dealing with. So we have to change that.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Great.
He asked, how does the city enforce short-term rental license requirements in collecting hotel taxes?
So the city's currently in a drafting stage of SDR's requirements and enforcement. We actually have a joint planning and city council meeting on February 4th, which is, I believe it's a Tuesday, and it starts at 1 p.m. I think, 72 hours before the meeting, you can submit questions. You can start submitting questions, so I encourage folks to do that. Then on February 11th, the Planning Commission is meeting up. I forget what time they're meeting up, but sometime on February 11th, where if you're unable to make the meeting on February 4th, you can make the meeting on February 11th, and then I think on February 27th, council will take it up for a vote. So there's 3 different opportunities to make sure you have your voice heard. So I encourage folks to start reaching out to their council member, which if you're here, I assume it's me. But also making sure you're able to come to those meetings. And if you can't make it in person, there's always a virtual option. But we're also exploring options regarding fees and hotel occupancy taxes. So that's something that will be very much Brennan Center for the month of February. If you have any questions, want to talk more about it, I've talked to a few people who, they might have been the ones who actually submitted this question. Feel free to reach out to our office. Natalie, who's somewhere here, this is kind of her bread and butter. So if you picked up one of the one-pagers, her email's on it. It's natalie.deller@austintexas.gov. My email, which is not on that sheet, is just zo.qadri@austintexas.gov. So we'll be happy to have an email exchange if anyone wants to meet up, one-on-one, virtual, whatever it might be. We really want to make sure we hear from y'all before the vote takes place at the end of the month.
And then the next question, and we're gonna pivot over to a zoning question, and this one's from Jen, and she asks, how can we work and collaborate with the city to further shape our neighborhoods in Cherrywood, especially with all the construction mounting over the next 5 years?
Yeah, well, not only, and I appreciate the question from Jen, not only, Cherrywood, but just all the various neighborhoods that are in District 9, Cherrywood, Hyde Park, Travis Heights, Bolton Creek, Awana, Miller, probably forgetting a neighborhood, and I apologize if you're in that neighborhood that I forgot. But we've been working very closely with all the neighborhoods on zoning cases. But zoning cases aren't planning, and I think that's why it's really important for our office to also work with the planning department on making sure that we have the right zoning tools on a lot of these big changes that are coming up. So I think I answered the question.
All right, and then with that, we will pivot to housing questions. The next one is kind of a combination from Todd and Katie, but asking really how can we make rent more affordable in Austin and affordable for people who work in lower paying jobs?
So the two biggest ways we could work on that affordability are subsidies. So focus on, in subsidies normally focus on low-income folks making under 60% MFI. And the second thing is just expanding market options. So one thing that we did as a DIAS I think end of year 1 and I think beginning of year 2, my time on the DIAS was home, so smaller homes and smaller lots. We eliminated parking mandates citywide, and eliminating parking mandates doesn't eliminate parking. It didn't eliminate already existing parking. Simply leaves it up to the developer as they're building a new project on how much parking should be on site. And there's never been a case since we've passed that item that zero parking has been built. In a parking spot, just for, I'm geeking out on it a bit, but for those who might not know, a parking spot costs anywhere from, I think it's like $5,000 to $10,000 for for a surface lot parking, and then but it could go all the way up to $50,000, and that cost of that parking space falls on the homeowner, falls on the renter, and we've seen with the elimination of parking mandates, it helps kind of make a few $100s off of rent or the cost of living. So it's stuff like that that can help with the cost burden that a lot of folks face. But I think transportation is another thing, kind of reducing this dependency on cars. And I think that's why this council has taken such a commitment on like going multimodal, on looking at things like Project Connect, on making sure that we get as many folks when possible outside of the car, and taking public transit, because transportation costs often are the number 2 or number 3 cost burden on a household. So like I said, there's various things we could do, and those are some of them.
Next question is from Katie, and she asks, is there any way the city can punish greedy landlords who use RealPage and other algorithms to set rental prices? I was going to put an asterisk too. If you want to find Melissa after this, she's been doing a deep dive into this topic over the past 6 months. So yeah, enjoy the question.
And I'm also going to be completely honest, I had no idea what RealPage was before this question was submitted, so and a lot of y'all might not know what RealPage is, but RealPage is an algorithm that essentially allows property management companies to collude in fixed rents instead of allowing more free market competition to happen. So there was a DOJ federal lawsuit, and what it found is that Austin actually has the highest share of rental properties that use RealPage. And I thought we were gonna hopefully make some progress on this really, bad, sinister thing. But with the new administration, now taking office, it's honestly an unknown of if we're gonna be able to kind of fix this. We've been in touch with other cities, and we've been working with this national group on bringing forward an item on price fixing. But once again, the challenges of a rogue administration in a state that unfortunately at times speeds up on Austin. But we're going to continue to see what creative things we can do as a city on that issue.
Next question is from Sarah, and she asks, how do we encourage local home building and not rely on national corporate builders whose track record on maintenance, fees, and rent increases is dismal?
Yeah, so something cool that Austin did last year, the housing department, they worked with 20 local groups who are historically don't have a seat at the table, and we're able to kind of work with them on kind of setting up shop, which is not going with this the traditional out of Austin, out of town big market folks. So I think there's innovative things that the city is doing to bring other people to the table and kind of giving other opportunities and other people and other chances to kind of exist in this space.
I don't understand your response.
So there's
Setting up shop, what does that mean? You're providing training, the city's providing funds? What does that mean?
yeah. So this housing department had took 20 groups which were small developers, folks who normally aren't able to become developers or have that seat at the table, and kind of train them and give them an opportunity to kind of start their own firm of sorts.
But then that kind of discriminates against all the other small developers. So we're gonna have an ADU built, and I will ask our contractor, has he been invited to that? He probably has never heard about it, so how does one go about selecting who can be at the table?
Yes.
So I'll add, for type of events like that too, we always put information like that in our newsletter. And so any sort of professional development, workforce training opportunities that the city of Austin provides, we put it in our bi-weekly newsletter. And the city will usually...
The city themselves also puts it out, whether it be online or through newsletters or on message boards and whatnot. So what Sarah's mentioning is a newsletter that our office does, but the city also has other ways of putting out information that individuals, if they so choose or so wanted to be a part of this, have an opportunity to sign up and to kind of go through the application process. So it's not something that's just, they find 20 people and it's just those 20 people. I'm sure there was, I'm making up a number, 50 different groups that signed up, and those 20 got chosen. And I think maybe, next round, maybe 30 or 40 groups sign up, and then it's a different, 20 groups that are chosen.
So, so people that are left out of the table are minorities, right?
No.
Well, so I'm asking,
Yeah.
was there an effort made to contact the major organizations for African Americans, for Asians, for Latinos? Do you know?
I believe that's what the housing department is. I mean, the program itself is meant for underrepresented folks and folks who normally don't have an opportunity. So those are often folks, communities of color, immigrant communities.
Because I belong to several, and I regularly attend, or I'm an officer. I don't recall hearing any of that.
Yeah.
Period. That would have been something good that we could have passed on, because
Yeah, I'll make sure to get your contact info as an office, and then also talk to folks in the planning department to make sure that they're also in the loop with you and your organization and anyone else you might know.
that would be wonderful. Thank you.
Great, yeah. No, I'll make sure I do that before the sale ends.
Great. And now we're moving over to mobility, which were the bulk of the questions submitted. So the first one is from Ryan, and he asked, when are there going to be adequate amount of Cap Metro bikes available at bike share stations? And when will the new shared use bridges from Rainey to the Butler hike and bike path open?
Yes, I believe there's more bikes, Cap Metro bikes that are supposed to go live this spring and this summer. And what we've been working with Cap Metro on is making sure that they have that communication to make sure that they're able to get it out through social media, through newsletters and other forms to the general public on when the new bikes will go live. The second question was trails.
When will the new shared use bridges from Rainy into the Butler hike and bike
So
path
one of them opened yesterday, 2 days ago. I was at it. I was at the opening. So Waterloo, yeah. Myself and Congressman Doggett and a lot of great groups were at this. It wasn't even a ribbon cutting. There was 2 goats that ate the ribbon. So goats that ate. So that was really exciting, and I know there's more that are supposed to go online in the next coming months. And I had breakfast with the congressman this morning, and there's a lot of money that has been earmarked towards trails and pathways, in the downtown area in District 9, but also throughout the city.
And then the next question, which we kind of touched on earlier with Chief Davis, was about the 6th Street pilot and downtown initiative, and so, yeah.
There was something that was mentioned around downtown. I don't know if the person who asked it is here. I don't really have an answer, but I do think it's a neat thing. We got a question from a resident in downtown about bringing back the Dillo.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Very common question. So I'm all for looking into things of the past that might have worked. It was a downtown circulator, and I believe it ended about 20 some odd years ago. Is that right? But as someone who I currently live in the Miller neighborhood, but I used to live in downtown for about 5 years. I think it would have been pretty neat to have when I was there. So I think it's something that we should look at as a city.
It was in the 80s, I believe.
Is that when it stopped?
Yeah, it was around that time period, and it went all downtown, down Congress up to the Capitol, and it turned around and came back. It was a great.
Yeah.
Yeah, 40
And
years
it stopped
ago.
at about 2010.
Yeah.
It was 2010.
It was 2010 that it stopped.
Right
Yeah.
around there.
Yeah, because I moved to Austin in 2009, so
Yeah.
it must have just stopped. Yeah. See, there you go. That was
And then the next question is from Carol, asking when the I-35 construction begins, A, what is the best way to communicate with those in charge at TxDOT? And B, what is the best way to communicate with your office on your neighborhood safety issues around this construction project?
Yeah, I've said this since, even before being a candidate. I think highway expansion is bad policy. I'm not a fan of it. It causes displacement, it causes more traffic, it's not good for the environment. I mean, the list kind of goes on and on and on. Unfortunately, TxDOT's gonna have their 22-lane or however many lane highway, and I think what we've been doing as a council office and as a council is how do we get the best version of truthfully bad policy. So we've been working a lot with TxDOT. I encourage folks to reach out to our office about any issues or complaints or thoughts. Melissa in our office, I think that's her, sleeps, breathes, eats everything around the I-35 expansion, so reach out to her. But if you specifically want to reach out to someone through TxDOT, that's Nicholas Barbara, who is the public involvement lead. And if anyone has a panic, give the email. Their email is nbarbe-c@texdot.gov. So they're the person you're going to reach out to if you obviously reach out to our office, but they're the person at TxDOT that you would reach out to about any questions, comments, complaints, and just have that communication with them.
Next question, three people had a similar question around this, asking about your position on supporting infrastructure necessary to complete the Cap and Stitch development in the future, and specifically with questions around the Red Line, Airport, Boulevard Cap, and then what are the chances of getting at least the minimum 800-foot cap over I-35 at either 38.5 or Wilshire and 41st?
Yeah, going back to, once again, it's around highway expansion. So, not a fan. I think the caps are necessary. I think making sure that we commit and get the funding necessary to fully see out the vision that we have. We had an opportunity as an office to go to Boston a few months ago and meet with the city of Boston, forgetting the city's name now, city of Cambridge, and city of, I'm forgetting the other city's names, Cambridge, Boston, and one of my Somerville. There you go. God, you guys might have been on the trip with me. And see, how they kind of do the highway expansion fight. And one thing they did was Rose Kennedy Greenway, and just seeing what they've done around it. I think there's a lot of stuff that we can do here in Austin. I didn't have a chance to go, but Councilman Bella had the chance to go to Dallas. They had Clyde Warren Park. They've done something really great and innovative with that green space. So seeing what we can do here in Austin, based off what we've seen in Dallas and what we've seen in Boston, I think the possibilities are endless, and I think we need to continue to push and to get maximum cap space that we can.
All right, great. And then our last question is from Lawrence, and he's asking, given your role on the City Council's Mobility Committee as Vice Chair, how do you use your leadership to navigate a lot of contradictory mobility initiatives, whether it be I-35, people trying to attack Project Connect, and how do you view your leadership, over the next year of tackling those things?
Yeah, I think unfortunately, just the way that things are currently, the state and the city are often at odds when it comes to mobility goals and ideals. As a city, we're pushing for Project Connect, and we're pushing for like multimodal modes of transit. At the state, they're trying to kill Project Connect, and they're trying to, they're pushing for this highway expansion. So it's two very much opposite schools of thought. So I think it's my, I can only speak for District 9, I can only speak for the city of Austin. So it's my job and the job of my colleagues to push for what our residents want. And time again, we see that it's investments in things like Project Connect, it's investments in multimodal modes of transit. So that's what I'm going to be doing. I'm fairly certain, especially after this work session, that I'll be on the Campo board. But I also understand after talking to members of the dais who have been on Campo in previous years, that just because you're the city of Austin and you're on Campo doesn't mean other people agree with you. In most of the smaller cities that are on the Campo board, Pflugerville, Hutto, and Buda, and all these other random small cities, which I'm sure are terrific cities, also don't buy in that Austin school of thought, and often vote for highway expansion, often push back on a lot of ideals and values that we're pushing here in Austin. So, and I've had an opportunity to talk to Mayor Pro Tem Fuentes this afternoon. I think it's important, even being in the minority in an organization on Campo, to still push for these mobility goals that we have, as a city.
All right, great. Well, yeah, those are all of our questions, but like was mentioned at the beginning, if you have an additional question, feel free to use the QR code in the back. You can email us if that's easier. And if you have submitted a question that we didn't get a chance to touch on today, we do have all the questions, and we'll respond via email to everyone individually that submitted a response.
Yeah, and the only thing I'll add is, I appreciate everyone being here, and like I said, there was a lot of similar questions, so we tried to combine them as much as we could. There's some questions that if we didn't get to right now, we're going to send an email response later. And I just really want to reiterate how much I appreciate everyone being here. And I think, I can hear a lot of complaints or people who might not like me for X, Y, Z reason. But the one thing that I never want to hear is that people feel like they didn't have a voice, or they didn't have an opportunity to be heard, or to send an email and they didn't get a response of some kind. So I encourage folks to continue to reach out to our office. We have we'll have another town hall in the next few months, and we'll have a special guest to that one. And that will probably be at UT, because we're going to try to do a town hall every other month or so, and have a different topic. This one was more of a general one. We took a bunch of questions on different topics, but having one that's centered on mobility, centered, one that's on housing, public safety, public health, et cetera. So we're gonna try to have more topic-specific town halls going forward. But every Friday, I also have office hours, whether you need 15 minutes or 30 minutes, whether it be virtual or in person. If you reach out to Anna in our office, she could get that scheduled. And if Friday doesn't work for you, just reach out to Anna and she can find some time on my calendar, Monday through Thursday, as long as there's not a work session or a council meeting. But I really want to make sure that as an office, we're hearing from y'all, the good, the bad, the ugly, and that we're doing everything that we can to be as proactive as we can. If we didn't get your answer, your question tonight, you'll definitely get an email in your inbox. Please don't hesitate to reach out, and I really appreciate everyone being here.
And then, just gonna add to.
Can you just take a couple questions from the crowd? I mean,
Oh.
there's like 50 people here.
Oh.
And like not everybody would want to send an email.
Exactly.
Sure. Maybe I could.
Until 8, right? I mean, yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so I was gonna say we could either, answer, I see your hand and your hand separate.
My question was just to give people a chance to
Oh,
ask questions.
sure.
Yeah, so I know some people too feel more comfortable just asking one-on-one with him, so we just open the floor if someone wants to walk up, or if you wanna ask right now.
If you wouldn't mind.
Interaction.
Hi, my name's Adam. I want to organize in favor of funding all the caps across Austin. So if anybody's interested in doing that, please come see me afterwards. I really appreciate your willingness to have more meetings on mobility, but in 2 months' time, Austin City Council is going to vote on a project that's going to shape District 9 for the next 80 years. I feel like we need somebody who's very much a champion and pushing that message to the other council districts. I was hoping that you could just talk a bit more about what exactly you support, if you support funding all the caps across Austin, if you are able to push other council members, how responsive you think they're being, and what kind of shot we have of getting this thing done. Because it's 2 months and then this whole opportunity passes by us forever. Talking about, even 800 feet caps is just it's really it feels like a slap in the face from TechStop that they said you can have these caps and now they're trying to lower it to this level. So I just want to get a sense from you, are you the champion to push this forward and what's the plan?
Yeah, we have 3 new council members who I've had some conversations with each one, so I can't speak for them, as much as maybe I could have spoken for their predecessors. But the council that was kind of making, I guess taking a lead on it with Councilmember Reinholter, Councilmember Bella, myself, Councilmember Ellis, on getting the funding for these caps and kind of seeing it to, from start to finish, that SLAR commitment. I think TechStop at times has been a great actor to work with, and at times has been a bad actor. And I think what our responsibility is to hold our feet to the fire and to get as much of, the caps and the funding as much as we can.
What can we do, and do you think there's a chance that the city council is going to vote yes for all of them? Or what do you think?
Like I said, I can't speak for my colleagues. I know where I'm at. What my advice would be is to reach out to the other council offices. And that's probably the best way to do, right?
As well, your state delegation has a lot of weight on this right now. All of the Austin delegation at the state, reach out to them. They can deal with that. So definitely reach out. Every level of government you can would be the biggest thing. Send letters to TechDOT. If we can make our voices as loud as possible, at least that's doing something, but it's definitely also beyond the council too.
Yeah, I would
The
say.
state's a big player in this.
Yeah, I would say advocate as much as you can. We've had meetings as a council with our colleagues at the state reps. I believe at District 9, our council, our state rep Cole, Hinojosa, and Flores. So reach out to them, but also reach out to the whole delegation. And I know Rep UC has taken kind of the lead on mobility issues. Reach out to your state senators, reach out to the folks of the county, and reach out to folks at TechStop.
For funding, you think the state might help fund this?
I think you're gonna have fighters from the Austin delegation. Yeah.
That doesn't sound
I
like.
think you have a higher chance of the state reps and the Austin delegation being in more rooms with people that run the state department, is what I think he's trying to get into. I think we should go to the next question, but we'd be happy to talk with you more about this later.
So we're on the brink of an irreversible climate disaster. I think we all understand that. So why is the mayor and council pushing forward to demolish the convention center dig big giant crater, build it back, and then the whole business model is dependent on air travel for the next 30 years on a 30-year bond. Now, how does that make sense?
So your question is on the convention center?
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, your question specifically is on why are we expanding the convention center?
Well, why, we're on the brink of a climate disaster.
Yes, sir.
Why are we rebuilding an entity that depends on air travel till the year 2060? In other words, we have to root for its success by rooting for more air travel in order to make that thing a success, when all the other things you're doing is to reduce emissions.
Yes, sir. From my understanding with the convention center expansion, it's a convention center that doesn't work for, I understand what you're saying, but depending on air travel, and a lot of folks might come to the convention center, might be both from, out of state or out of country, but just for the city, the size of Austin, and even, in the state of Texas, it's still not a convention center that fits for our needs, and I think that's the reason for its expansion. So the hope is that it take away what the conventions that could come, nationally or these bigger things. It just doesn't work for Austin right now.
They operate at a loss. We're losing money on it.
Well, I think, just to add to that too, just because of the size of the convention center, and how long ago it was built, a lot of people that would be interested in, using that space, it doesn't fit for their needs, and so the convention center has to turn a lot of people down, and it's starting to become at a point for cities that similar size of us, they just go with them, and so slowly over time, we've been losing, people that traditionally work with the convention center, and so in order to, take advantage of, growing the convention center, or having the base, at least the revenue, make up for the cost of it.
Since we're talking the convention center, when you're building the big huge one, could we ever move ACL Music Fest there and give Zilka back to us?
I mean, I can't speak for Austin Parks Foundation or C3 or anything of that sort, but as of now, ACL will continue to be in Zilker Park.
And then,
Think about the convention center then.
Yeah, sorry, I just want to be mindful of time. We're happy to stay after and chat with people one-on-one. But yeah.
So we have 3 minutes, so we could probably get this gentleman right now.
More generalized climate question. Given the recent executive orders from Trump, what, if anything, does the city council plan in the way of a pushback, either by itself or in conjunction with other cities?
Yeah, I think that's something that we're looking at. We've had executive session meetings on, I guess, life during Trump, I guess, and what we can and what we can't do. I think that's something, today we just had an executive session on that. So, as it relates to climate, it relates to immigration, and we're seeing a lot of.
There's a lot it can relate to, I just picked climate.
Yeah, fair. But, a big thing that's making the rounds right now are the ice raids that are happening throughout the city of Austin. So we're trying to see where we can work with other cities, and what we can do as a body here in Austin. I think we have like one question. Sure.
I've seen you advocate for, the Rainy Street Entertainment District
Mhm.
and the Sixth Street Entertainment District, and, those, in my opinion, attract a certain crowd. They're younger, spending money, they're drinking, and, having a good time. I'm an older person, I stay home, I pay my taxes. We go back 120 years in the city, our family does, so we have relatives just all over, we've been pushed out, and we no longer live here. So I personally, as a taxpayer, would love it if you paid more attention to the needs of the neighborhoods. For instance, we are hearing gunshots on the weekends. We never heard that before. I'm hearing racing on Airport Boulevard in the middle of the night on the weekends, and that was something that we didn't hear before. So those are concerns for people in our neighborhood, and I live in North Hyde Park.
Mhm.
And so, you know, things like that affect us are the taxpayers, people that have been here a long time, people that are here at your meeting. And so, one of the biggest problems that we have in our neighborhood is just lack of parking. And I know that, you know, housing, those rules have been restricted, but if you have a house that also has an ADU and they rent to 5 different individuals, well, they're gonna bring in those 5 different vehicles, and they're gonna be vehicles also for the friends and family that just, make it difficult to maneuver here and there. And in addition to people like myself, I'm gonna be contributing to that because we're gonna have an ADU built, and so there's gonna be extra construction and noise, but
Question?
the parking
What-
situation
what's
is
the question?
difficult, and then these sticks make it even worse. People really don't respect them. That's just a way of spending money, wasting money. So we have people in our neighborhood just park right in front of them because they need that parking for their vehicles, and a lot of them are broken. Sometimes it's very, very hard to navigate around those sticks, and we love the speed bumps. I think those are a good thing, those gentle speed bumps, but those sticks, what can we do about those? I mean, that's all, we're just like,
I
it's
think-
driving us crazy.
Yeah.
I think setting up a time for you to meet with our office, because I'm hearing a couple of different things that you mentioned.
Yeah, I'll touch on some of it though. You had mentioned stuff that we had done on 6th Street and Rainy Street, more on the safety of both streets. When I first got into office, there were several drownings that were happening on Rainy Street. We later found out that there were instances of folks who had their drinks spiked. And the trailhead that the drownings would occur on was a trailhead that had no lighting, had no cameras, had no signage, and had no fencing. So if you know, whether you're drunk or you're drunk and you have your drink spiked, you're trying to walk home, you know, the distance between the water and the trail was probably this big. So we brought forward an item that looked at improvements on the trailhead. We put up fencing, we put up landing, we put up signage. We've got a patrol out in the area around 6th Street, I think she also touched on. We passed a budget amendment on a drink test spiking, drink spike testing strips. So about 50 bars have opted into that program where they get educational material, but they also get testing strips from the city of Austin. So that if you're, God forbid, if your drink or the drink of a loved one was spiked, the person would have an opportunity to see if their drink was spiked. So that's why we've done the work in 6th Street, we've done in Rainy Street. It has to do with unfortunate drownings and instances of folks having their drink spiked and time in the area. You had mentioned the Hyde Park, I guess, public safety issues that you have dealt with around
The racing.
The racing and whatnot.
And then, the gunshots that were also
Yeah.
here, which is all in your thing.
Yeah, there's I believe the gentleman had left, but there was the district commander for Hyde Park. I can talk to him
Yes,
about that.
I
We spoke to him, great. And then the parking situation, you know, there's a lot of things that we're doing as a city. You see a lot right by South Congress, but throughout the city, like these parking districts, and that's sometimes a way to kind of deal with the situation that you kind of talked about. So we would be happy to talk to you more about that, and I know Melissa and our team who works on parking would be really happy to talk about that as well. Great. And I think that's time, so I appreciate it. If y'all have any questions, then there's staff in the back, and I'm happy to